For the next painting and travel program, Roger and Sarah linger on the farm in the foothills of Tennessee. Roger sets up his easel and, using acrylics, paints the farm and the surrounding mountains.
Today, Sarah and I are in East Tennessee. We've been driving around all morning, just many, many beautiful places to paint. But we came around the curve here and we saw this barn with the silo, the little bit of orange on that tree. I think it will make a nice painting. I have an 11 by 14 inch piece of masonite here. I often cover this with some burnt sienna, but today I have a white piece of masonite. One reason I like this scene is because I wanted to paint the mountains, but without something in the foreground, just a mountain scene will not work quite so well. So to have some nice, strong elements in the foreground will help to make the painting a little nicer. For my colors today, I have titanium white, alizarin crimson, Indian yellow, and ultramarine blue. These are acrylics. They're going to dry very fast. So without having my burnt sienna color on the background, it won't be too much of a problem because it will dry so quickly. I can layer other colors over this very easily. A few minutes ago, I took a piece of charcoal and I blocked in these areas just with the edge of my charcoal. That's to get the large shapes because I'm trying to rely on these big areas and I'm not worried about the detail at this point. I'm worried about the big composition. So I just blocked in these areas sort of to give me a silhouette of what I'm going to paint. I could wipe this off somewhat, just like that. That way the charcoal won't mix with the paint. Generally that's not a problem anyway, but I can still see the image here. I have an atomizer. This is a little atomizer with some water. That will help to keep my paint's wet, and if I spray my board like this, it also helps the paint to slide over the board easier so the paint won't drag. I usually start out with my dark colors, but I think today I might vary that some. I'm not sure. As I look at this, I think I might start with these mountains back here. As you can tell, it's fall, so we have very warm tones back there, but those mountains are in the distance so far that the sky, all this blue light from the sky is really what makes these mountains blue. It's just the light casting itself and all the atmosphere between us and those mountains. It has a very cool blue cast. So I'm trying to mix a color here of those mountains. It's a bit hard because there's a lot of shadows in there, but I want to get one solid color to start with and just block that out as one solid mass. And this may very well be the wrong color, but I've got to start at some point. So maybe I'll adjust this right now as I go. I can see my images here of the barn. Even though that's a very nice barn there with a nice straight roof, I sometimes put a little curve in that barn roof. It gives it a little more character. Now I'm trying to get the value right here on this mountain as much as I am with the color, because as I look at that, I can sort of sense that that's a middle tone gray, maybe somewhat lighter. Then the trees down here become darker, and as I squint my eyes, this grass is lighter than the mountain, so I have to keep that in mind. Colors in the foreground here are going to be much warmer because of all the colors in the leaves that are changing. So I'll put some yellow, some red in there, and I'll warm that up. And it's also darker, so I'll put a touch of, I'll just make this darker and warmer down in here. There, so I've got this lighter, this somewhat darker. I hear some cows in the distance over there. This is a very nice, quiet place to paint. On the edge of these paintings, if these mountains drop down, it sometimes leads my eye out of the painting. So I always like to have something that goes, that points in like this, so my eye keeps going into the painting. I don't want too many of these angles that sort of fall off the edge and go out. So I'm going to bring this one up here and this one up here. So that'll sort of, it's like a bowl. It sort of keeps my eye within this area. I only have 3 colors here. These are, of course, primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. But these are transparent colors. Transparent colors. This Indian yellow is transparent. Some of the Indian yellows are not transparent. And when I say they're transparent, it means that they don't have white in them. So if you have an Indian yellow and you put it and it covers totally over something underneath, it's probably an opaque color. But these are transparent. That's what I like to start with, the transparent colors. And the reason is because I can make such nice rich darks with the transparent colors. You can't make these rich darks with the opaque colors because, as I said, they have white in them. Here again, I'm just interested in the values. I see this is darker than the mountains back here. Of course, this side will be somewhat lighter. Now I'll put in some darks here. Using 3 colors is kind of nice because I really don't have a lot of choices to work with, and sometimes having less is easier as far as, because I don't have to choose between a number of different colors and greens and blues. But I look at this and I can say to myself, is this a warm color or a cool color? So is this dark, warm, or cool? And I can see this is quite warm, this color right here, as opposed to this color on this barn, which is a metal siding, and that's going to be cool. So as I look at this and squint my eyes, I can see that the silver barn here with the metal siding is about the same value as the wooden barn, somewhat lighter. So I'll use this paint right here and I'll mix up my red, yellow, and blue again, but this time I'll put more blue in it. And as you can see, this is darker, that's just a tad bit lighter, and it's cooler. So we'll use this color for the edge of the barn. Maybe just touch more white. So now you can see the values here are very close. This is dark, they're both dark. This is warm and this is cool. That's just a tad bit lighter in value. When I say value, I just mean lightness and darkness. This is just a bit lighter in value. Now we have some tin roofs there. And I love to paint tin roofs. They're always a joy to paint. This one here on the left is rusty. So we'll warm that up with some warm colors. Now that is too dark, I can see, because as I look at that barn, these are about the same value now. And of course, as we look over there, this barn is much lighter. But I'm going to leave that for now because I want some dark colors underneath here. And then when that dries, we'll put in some of the lighter colors on top. Now the barn on the right is very pristine. It must be much newer, but I may want to give that more character, and so I think I'll take this same warm color and I'll put this on the roof of the barn. I won't leave it that color, but we'll start out with that to begin with. I'm going to make the roof of this barn here darker than it's going to end up. We'll drop that silo in there. I think I'll make this all just one big solid color for now. And then when this sets up and dries for a few moments, we'll add more of the details. There are so many barns here. We've got a red one in the background. It's in deep shadow there. So I'm still going to use my 3 colors, but I'm going to add more red than anything else in here. So we'll drop this shape right there. Then we have another little barn right there. Looks okay to me at this point. I'm going to spray this here and mix up some green. But I'm going to start still by using these transparent colors. And I'm going to make this darker than I wanted to end up with because I want to put my light colors over my dark colors. That's generally how I work, from dark to light. So even though this is a light green, I can still lighten it more. So when this dries, I can scumble more lighter colors over it and give it more of a grassy feel. Got some nice shadows in here. And these shadows will add a bit of dimension to the painting. Got this large tree here. So how lucky is it to just have all these elements come together in a painting like this? It doesn't often happen. That was a general rule. Keep in mind, there are no, seems like rules to painting always end up being broken for good reason. But as a general rule, as colors recede, for instance, this grass, the grass in the foreground will be more intense than the colors in the background. So theoretically, and I really do see it this way, the green grass right in front of me is greener than that grass way over here. So this has more intensity to it, more color. So how do you get rid of the color? Well, you can add white, or you can just add the opposite color and gray it down. In this case, I'm going to add some white. And this way, I want to give this as many planes as I can. So we've got a big step here, we have another one here, have another one here, and then finally we go in the background. Now I'll mix some dark green, so I'll mix this blue in here, and I'll just drop some shadows in here. Don't think I need the shadows to go from one side to the other completely. I think I may have them stop here. So I put some more green down there. This also is a nice feature because it will give me an idea that this is sloping down on a bit of a hill. And without this shadow, it might be more difficult to express that. And we've neglected the sky so far, which is a brilliant blue. Ultramarine blue and white might just do the job. I generally don't use a color right out of the tube because they just tend to be too vivid. And when you look at them, it's just too obvious that it's ultramarine blue, but it really is that color today. So I'm going to use this, and I can see it's too dark right now because it's getting close to the value of this mountain, so I need to put more white in there. As I look at that, it could be somewhat warmer, so maybe I will add just a dab of yellow to that, and this will warm up this sky color, and that of course will remove that stigma of having it look like pure ultramarine blue. And I can blend this out. I have to work very quickly with the acrylics because these do dry very fast, and that is a great advantage when painting, and sometimes it can be a disadvantage depending on how much you get used to working with these acrylics. I tend not to use too much white unless I have to, because too much white in a painting will make the painting start to look chalky and weak. So I try not to use white unless it's necessary. I work the canvas over and over as I go. I don't try and finish any one area. I want the whole painting to be finished at once. So I'll finish a little bit here, then I'll jump to another area and finish that, and then just go back to it and finish this more, and so on. Okay, I'm going to jump up to the mountains right now, and there's some very vivid dark blue shadows coming into these mountains. But as I squint my eyes, I see those mountains as one solid flat color, but within that flat color, I see a lot of variations. So I'll try and mix something here that's close in value to this, just slightly darker and slightly cooler. See, right here is the edge of a mountain here. That might be a good place to put a shadow because this side is going to have a nice highlight on that silo, so it wouldn't hurt to have more contrast right in here. That'll bring out the highlight better if this right there is in shadow. Okay, maybe we'll jump down to the roof here of this small barn. And as I look at that, it's very cool in color. So maybe I'll go up here and mix this in my pile of blue paint. This is all dry. That's totally dry there. All this is dry. So I'll try and indicate some of that tin roof that's coming down here. Now, see, the nice thing about having that warm tone underneath is when I put this cool color on top of this metal roof, this tin roof, I'm leaving that to show through. So that's going to give that a little character. So that works out really very nicely. And as I said before, I'll give that a little bit of a sway back just to add a bit of character to that roof. Now we'll go to this roof, and it is quite rusty. I'll stay away from those cool colors and I'll mix some warm colors, but make these lighter. There's actually two small buildings down here. It's almost indistinguishable to see them both together, but there's one building right here, and then there's one right behind it. They almost blend together to look like one barn, but they're actually two different small structures. Since these silos are round, of course, the variation between the light and the dark is somewhat subtle. So I'll make this darker here. And since I sprayed it, I can wipe off my brush and just drag some of that darkness over into the lighter side. I'm going to be very cautious about this, just do a little at a time. I don't want to overdo the darks and the lights right now. This small barn, which is across a small street here, we painted this all sort of a middle tone, dark color, and there's a shadow from the silo being cast on this roof here. So we'll put the lighter side of that here, and we'll just leave this dark as the shadow. So there is the roof, and there is the shadow. Okay, the edge of that is made out of some kind of cinder block, so that tends to be warm. So I'm going to mix up a warm color here. And then we'll do the same thing here. We'll put this lighter value down here. This will be in shadow, and of course this right here will be lighter. Although there are some dark posts and all going on back there. We may deal with those at a later time, and what I'm trying to do out here is get an idea of what my colors are, because I can see the colors so much better out here in real life than I can from a photo. In a photograph, all the dark colors will just tend to be dark blackish colors. I won't be able to see the warmth or the coolness in them in a photograph nearly as much as I can in real life. So I tend to learn a lot when I come out here and paint like this. Here we've got there's a window there and this door, so we'll take that same color and we'll drag that right across here and make the shadow under that eave. This gets dry pretty quickly here. I'm going to spray this just with a razor blade, remove some of this paint so I can get a fresh start. Then I have a little cardboard box, so I never leave anything behind. I always take my scraps with me. Top edge of this small metal building here, I'm going to put a highlight right in here. I'm using a smaller brush now. While I have that same paint out, I'm going to put one hand over the other, and then I'll make a few lines down this way, just indicating where those metal panels go together. And I think I'll put another highlight down here on the very bottom where this drip edge is. Brings that into somewhat more of a sharp focus. Now the edge of this barn is much more of a brilliant red because the light's hitting it. This is fairly brilliant. I'm going to take my red and my blue, and I'm going to cut this red down somewhat here because I think it's too light. Makes a nice foreign note of color in there too, that red. The roof of that barn is catching a lot of light, and it's sort of a cool color. So I'll mix my blue and my white, and we'll just put the roof of that barn right down, boom, right right there. I'm going to reach around the corner here and pick up some cadmium red light, and we'll put the edge of the barn right here in this cadmium red color. Well, this grass is bothering me some. Easily fix this back in the studio, and that might be a better place, might be a better time to do that in the studio, but I think I will get out my last color I'm going to put on my palette, and that's cadmium yellow light. This is also an opaque color, and it's a little thin. Okay, so we have 3 transparent colors, and we have 2 opaque colors here. So with my ultramarine blue, and then my opaque cadmium yellow light, see, that gives me an extremely brilliant green. Too brilliant, really. I'm going to add some more white to that, some more yellow. It's just too intense. I'm going to spray my board, and I'm going to pick up my fan brush. Fan brush is very good for adding some grass. I'll spray this, and that will allow this paint to sort of flow out, give me a soft edge. So earlier what I said about as a general rule, the grass in the foreground will be more intense than the grass in the background. So now I'm starting to put that into play. This right here is much more intense green than this back here. But I want some of this color and this value to show through. That's why I'm using the fan brush. I don't want to just cover it as a solid yellow-green mass of paint, because what makes this look like grass is the texture in here. I can just add some other colors as I go, maybe some Indian yellow, maybe a touch of red, because I don't want just one color here. I want a nice variation of colors. Got a little insect there, exploring my painting. There he goes. So now I'm putting in some of the sunlight over these dark areas, and you can see this is much more vivid than these colors back here. As this goes in the background, this gets more gray. Well, let me approach the silos for a few moments, and I'll put the highlights on the side of those silos. I'm going to use a warm color for the highlight right on the side here.
I did have a chance to ask one of the dairy farmers how the silos were used in the past, and he said that they were used to store silage, and that silage was corn that had been chopped up, stalk and all. The corn, the stalk, all the way down to the bottom, and that made very nice food for not only the cows but the horses, and it had lots of nutrients because it did have the corn kernels in it.
Take that same warm color and we'll add that highlight right across the roof here of this barn, and this one somewhat. Have some very dark colors right in here. There's some different posts and some kind of a fence thing going on here. And we'll put the shadow right under this part of the roof. Take our cool color, our light cool color, and put a cone on the top of this structure here, some sort of a silo, I guess. And a few highlights down the edge of it. Here we have a pipe running down here. And on the edge of this silo, there's another pipe. Not sure what all that is. Right over here on this small barn, we have another roof. With my small brush, we'll put that in. And another shadow underneath that roof, underneath the eaves. Right there. One thing that struck me as I came around this corner was that autumn tree there with the leaves that are that beautiful yellow-orange color. So with my fan brush, I'm just going to indicate a few of those. That may be the brightest thing in the painting. I don't know, because it's just such a unique little feature there I'm going to just put in a few of those leaves just to remind myself that that tree is there. Well, we've had a great day here in the foothills. I have what I came here for. I've got the basics down on this painting. Now it's time to take it back into the studio and put those few finishing touches on it. The first thing I did was work on these mountains. I softened the color to push them in the background. I added a touch more color right here in these mountains to bring them forward just a bit. Some color was added to this tree and details put in the barn, and other details were put in these silos. I added some rusty red colors to these roofs here before it looked like this was almost one roof. I also added color to this roof here and more detail. I added this road, which was actually there, but it made a nice change of color and a nice change of pace right in this area between the darks and the lights. Foreground was a bit difficult, but I added more patches of grass and some more sunlight in this area. Sarah and I enjoyed being in Tennessee, and this was a fabulous farm. I could have spent lots and lots of time there. Well, I think that will finish this painting. Let's put a frame on it and we'll take another look.
For more information about painting and travel with Roger and Sarah Bansemer, visit paintingandtravel.com.